I've got a bit of a cold here. I probably should be home in bed, but it was very important that I come out here, and thank you to all of you for being here. So important. I give thanks and respect to Indigenous peoples for their territory that we are on. And I represent and bring greetings from the Greater Vancouver Japanese Canadian Citizens Association. We've got some members here, Lily, Judy, Ron, there's a few members that are here. And we do want to bring greetings. We want to bring a message, as you heard from the sister before me, reject fear. And that is one concern that the Japanese Canadian community would like to share with you. And I think you are very informed about things like Bill C-51, but there's a lot of the public that doesn't understand what is the problem with this bill. Well, let me tell you folks, we have Japanese Canadian seniors, our elders, who are very scared. This is a horrible deja vu. In 1942, Japanese Canadians were targeted, most of them Canadian born. At that time, the Canadian government did the same kind of fear mongering. We were called enemy aliens. People were warned to watch out about spies and secret radio messages and the threat to the country. And using that fear, they enacted the War Measures Act, and they rounded up Japanese Canadians from the West Coast. They were incarcerated, some of the ones out of Vancouver were incarcerated, brought to Vancouver in Hastings Park and put in the livestock barns, the animal barns. All of them were then shipped out to various camps or also deported. There was a plan to get rid of Japanese Canadians. And that is the fear we see with a government that is fear-mongering. In February, we heard from 2 Muslim organizations that called out this current federal government and said, why are you linking Muslims and mosques to your terrorist act when you're asked about it? That's a big shame, that fear-mongering. In 1988, Japanese Canadians won redress, and the government, which happened to be a conservative government at the time, said never again. People's rights would not be violated. Well, we're here to say that people are forgetting their history. It is so important that you remember the stories, that you hear the stories directly from the community and never forget. But don't also forget your promise, because part of that apology was an action of never again violating those rights. And that's what I want to bring that message here, is that the Japanese Canadian community wants you to know those stories, wants you to remember that, but we also want to work in solidarity. And if you think it doesn't affect you because maybe you're not a member, you're not a Muslim person, you're not a Japanese Canadian person, then just think of this, that it's not only targeting different groups, but it's targeting people that speak out against those groups. And I know that as Japanese Canadians, we speak out in solidarity with Indigenous peoples. We've spoken out on murdered missing women. We've spoken out on the degradation of our environment. We've spoken out against the targeting of Muslims. And sometimes we wonder that as part of our speaking out, are we now again going to be targeted? Are we going to be detained? Because unfortunately with Bill C-51, it is giving sweeping powers to detain people, to target people. So I appreciate that you're all here on this important day. It's important to take these actions and be very visible. But the actions that we have to take are every day, not just on one commemorative day. So again, I appreciate, but let's speak out, let's work together. And the other thing is, put the pressure on the elected folks. The MPs, whether friendly or not, need to hear from you, because they gauge public interest by the number of letters, the number of phone calls, and they can easily dismiss it when they say they don't hear from anyone. Doesn't mean they'll exactly change their minds, but you put the pressure on them, they will be taking it back to their party leaders. We are a force, and sometimes we forget that. When we come together, we can take strong action and tell them that this is not our country the way we want it, where we're targeting people. So thank you so much, and continue to take those actions.